Here we go. This is chapter 2 now, and we're talking about now strategy after talking about why HR is important to the organization. So one of the things that we need to make sure of, though, is when we're in HR and the HR department as a whole, is to ensure that they're always at the play table with the organization when they're looking at strategy. Not only opening up a new product or a new service, new building, launch a new company that they're going to be part of, or a merger, whatever the case may be. The reason why is because that's going to always take time and money, most importantly, people. Who's going to be part of it? Do we need to have more? Do we need to hire more? What kind do we need to hire? What do we need to get? That's why human resource should always be at the plate table or the big events table that the organizations have. So what we're looking at is to how to help the organization be successful, strive, survive, and grow. And then, of course, making sure that they that we're looking at the direction that we want to go toward making that goal successful. And the differences between strategy and strategic planning is that strategy is already a plan that you've looked at. Strategic planning is creating and developing that plan that you're going to need to have, what direction we're going in. Are we going to go at it alone? Do we need more people? Do we need more money? How much are we going to have to pay them? What are we going to need to do? Usually the organization goes through a kind of a process for planning. It looks at its mission. What is the mission of the organization? What do they do? And then, of course, then they start looking at their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, which is the SWOT analysis. Too many people focus just on, or too many organizations focus just on their strengths and their weaknesses. They forget about the opportunities that they may have. They gloss over them, or they're always looking at threats. They need to realize that at times those threats may open up opportunities for them as well. So they always have to start looking at it. They have to have goals and objectives. Where are we going? How are we going to get there? How are we going to stay afloat, not only for this year, next year, but 5 years down the road? How are we going to do this? So they have to look at that organizational strategy to help them get there. And then how they're going to have subcategories under that strategy to help support. For example, this is what we're going to do. How we're going to make it. Who are the people that are going to be meeting? Do we need, aside from money, do we need more people? What kind of people do we need to have? What are the things do we need to have? How are we going to implement it? And then afterwards, how are we going to know that we got there? How do we know how well we did? What are the measurements that we're going to put into place? The mission, of course, it's the reason for the existence of the organization. What makes them unique? What makes them who they are? And you'd be surprised. Some, for example, with Microsoft, when Bill Gates started, it wasn't about software, believe it or not. It was his strategy and his vision was onefold, which was a computer on every desk. He didn't say a computer at every business desk or every school desk. No, he said a business on every desk, regardless of where the desk was. It was broad enough that it helped him grow. It was narrow enough to help keep them focused on what they wanted to do. And without the computer, he couldn't have the software, which he started from, to make sure that everything was going to run on that computer. So, again, what is his mission? And who are the people that he was going to need to hire and to get to fulfill that mission that he had? And it should be short-term and long-term. It should go at least for 5 years because of the things that change. What are the internal factors? What are the external factors? Again, looking at the strengths and weaknesses. What are we going to do? How are we going to do that? And how do we make sure that everybody gets on task? Because, for example, January 1st, okay, everybody starts on a new and resolutions. One of the main ones is to lose weight, right? That's the goal. They forget about the strategies. How am I going to get there? How am I going to know when I'm there? And they always think about just dieting. They never look at the exercise plan and how those two have to work and how they have to go ahead and realize that quick and fast things to help them lose the weight is not the way to go. Do they even check with their doctor to see what they can and cannot do? That's a strategy formulation. Is okay, I want to do this, but now how am I going to do it? And answering those questions: who, what, when, where, why, and how are we going to get there? And how do we know that we finally got there? Of course, we also need to make sure that they plan and they use HR management, because sometimes the who, what, when, where, why also involves the laws. Can you even do it? Um, who's involved? Who's looking at getting involved? When is this going to happen? Um, how is it going to happen? How are we going to know that we stay within compliance? All those things have to come into play. Not only just hiring good employees, but how do you know that they're good? Placing the employees in the right job that they're going to flourish and be good at. Then, of course, rewarding them fairly so that they know that they're valued. Provide them any training on new technology, new things that are coming up. Um, then having that communication between them, that they're not going to be worried that if they speak up that they're going to lose their job. And then, of course, making sure that both the employer and the employee know what the goals are, and that how they know when they get there, and of course what the rewards are to getting toward the company's bottom line. So when we're looking at strategic planning, always make sure that it supports a strategy, and then ask the managers to act, inspires other, encourage them to be there. And sometimes the incentives have to be there, especially if it's a tight project. Look, if we get this done, then we're going to be able to do this, 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 this. Works. The other time, this is not a threat. Shouldn't be used as a threat. But sometimes employees need to be reminded that we need to do a good job, because if we don't do a good job in our service and our products that we're trying to sell, people won't buy them, and then guess what? We're out of jobs. That's not a threat, people. That's a reality. That's why you always want to do a good job in whatever you're doing, to make sure that you can continue on later on. So again, we're focusing on the future, focusing on the business goals, prioritizing the goals, and there's some goals that are short term that maybe have to be reevaluated. You know what? We're not going to get that done this time. It's because this and this has come up. So maybe we need to transfer that to a long-term goal, or a long-term goal that needs to be brought back into a short-term goal because now the time is right. Reevaluating everything, looking at the employment, the environment, the leadership, understanding what that leadership is, looking at the processes and the policies. Do we need to change them, improve them, enhance them? How to make sure that everything works together, how everything is going to be together, how to make sure that we're going to get through those challenges, because nobody likes change. No one likes change. But it happens. So we have to help facilitate our employees through that change, helping them feel comfortable, helping them feel valued, helping them feel secured in the change that's going to happen. Again, that's what we've got to do. There's multinational corporations again. So again, when you're looking at those kind of strategies, do we hire somebody that's in Europe already? Do we look at that talent? Do we send people over? What do we do? How are we going to do that? How are we going to take people, relocating them from one process to another, if that's what we've got to do? How are we going to make sure that leadership understands that that's something that we have to do? Because it may be, if we keep the people that we've got for the startup, it may be the least expensive to do and the least risk, because you already have people that know what they've got to do. However, you still have to have people from the other country, because they know the laws, they know the practices, they know the culture, to help you move into that area as well. It's a very fine line that HR works, but if it's done well, it's phenomenal. So again, analyzing all of this every single time, make sure that you've got the right people with the right time doing the right things. And right may not be good, and good may not be right. You're confusing me. No, I'm not. Think of it. Think of it. Okay? A long time ago, I'm going to give you a story. Love to do stories. A long time ago, the John Deere Corporation was looking at the onion farmers in India, and they were saying, you know what, we need to help these guys, because if we were to go ahead and provide them some technology, guess what? They could go ahead and advance technology. They could be able to increase their profits, increase their value, and thus be able to sustain themselves, because they were looking at wanting to help. That was a good thing. It wasn't the right thing. Let me tell you why. They didn't come to think about the fact that in order to get the tractor that they were giving, once it got over there, in order for the farmer to get the tractor, the government took over and seized the tractors, of course, for control. And what ended up happening is that the government, the Indian government, said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and take these tractors. You're going to purchase them, not just lease. And because you don't have the money, then I'm going to go ahead and have you put up your land as surety for the tractor. And then guess what John Deere forgot to do? Translate the training into Indian native language so they could understand what they needed to do, and not only just train them by reading a manual, but training them to know how to use it, how to do it. Well, what seemed like a good thing to do ended up being the wrong thing to do and not the right thing, because many of the farmers were foreclosed on because they didn't know how to use a tractor, they didn't know how to use it well, and they ended up losing their land and the tractor. So see how a good thing may not be the right thing unless we think it through. Okay? So we're looking at the process. We look at the organization's environmental analysis, meaning that we look at the inside and the outside as well. We look at the external and internal workforce. Do we need more people? Do we not need more people? Do we just need to train these people with this new technology? Or do we need new people with that new technology? What are we going to do? Then, of course, you start looking at the demands for which way the organization wants to go. How many people do we need to have? Do we need to have more people now, later, what? And then, of course, then make those plans into action. When are you going to do that? The succession plans for people that are deciding to quit or go to a different area. How are you going to help go through that and help the organization be successful as well? The scanning that needs to get done. Again, looking at the quality and the kind of quantity that you've got in talent, depending on where they want to go. If there's not any talent there, you either grow them, which means develop them, or you bring them in from other areas and you offer the bonuses, like right now. Louisiana needs a lot of welders. Remember, Katrina's not over yet. Even though Katrina happened a long time ago, they're still building. They're still fixing their infrastructure. So a lot of welders are still needed. So what they're doing is they're actually taking welders from everywhere that they can and sending them up there because they don't have enough there in Louisiana. So that's what I mean by environmental scanning and being able to know what your weaknesses are so that you can then turn that into a strength. As I said before, look at your strength, your intellectual capital, the employees, who's working, who's doing well. The weaknesses, do we have a skilled, do we have enough skilled employees? Do we need more? What is our position? How, are we going to globally expand? Yes or no? What are the technology advantages that we can take advantage of? And then again, what are our threats? Do we have more legal mandates now? What is the competitors out there? Is there a talent shortage? What's going to go on? And the thing that affects the external workforce availability, again, is everything. Legislation, acts, new things that are coming into play. Net migration, people that are going into different areas, competition, international competition as well. The aging workforce, the diversity of workforce, people that don't want to go into that area. I don't know. And then, do we need to outsource? Yes or no? Look at they also have to look at their current jobs, not just what we need as far as new jobs, new positions, but the jobs that we've got right now internally. Do they need more skills? Like for the longest time, secretary or receptionist did not need to have Excel, PowerPoint access, a little bit of web understanding for web design, or spreadsheets. Now, guess what? They need it all in order to survive. So we have to look at the inventory that we've got and the people that we've got and the skills and the knowledge that they have, and what we need to do to upgrade that as well. So when we're looking at estimating labor supply, you're looking at what your current staffing is, looking at your projected outflows, meaning look at those people that may be retiring or that may be quitting or going somewhere else. And then how many you're going to be taking in. And now, what is your supply that you're going to need for next year? Your current staffing level, your external hires, your promotions, and even your promotions that you have from within. Who's going to take over that job? What are we going to do? Turnover, terminations, demotions, retirements. So for the outflows, what are we going to do? Layoffs, deaths, all of that has to come in. So how are we going to replace them? And then look at the imbalances. Do we, while that position is open, do we increase the employee work hours? Yes or no? Do we go to a third party? Do we do a hiring freeze and then just take that position apart and give people more tasks to do? What are we going to do? And then if we have to reduce, do we have to, when we're reducing, what are we going to do? How are we going to get those people, help those people with severance packages? And or how are we going to keep them in so that we don't have any shortages? The best way to carry out the layoffs is to identify the knowledge and the skills that they need to have to execute. And then, of course, to realize that you are going to keep your best talent, but you have to pay attention to the survivors and also those that didn't survive. What are we going to do to help them find different jobs to help them out? I mean, right now, look at all the people that were let go from Sears, Payless, Toys R Us last year. And there's more and more companies. Victoria's Secrets is going to start closing down stores as well. Where are those people going to go? What are we going to do to help them out? Your severances, benefits. Do you offer counseling? Do you look at resume preparation, interviewing workshops, and then, of course, referral assistance as well? You have to make sure that when you are looking at reductions, that it is legal to do so. You have to be careful that you're not doing it because of age discrimination or because of disabilities. We'll get into that a little bit more. But one thing that you must understand also is this, is that in the state of Texas, I'll let you know, in the state of Texas, an employer can let you go for no reason whatsoever. All they have to do is say that your services are no longer required, because in the state of Texas, we are what is called a at-will employee or at-will employers. The employer works at the will of the employer. So unless it's something that's really really heinous or that is completely illegal, the employee is burdened with having to prove that. So we're going to get into a little bit more of that in chapter 3, okay, as we continue on. So again, we look at whether or not we're going to do different arrangements for working or outsourcing. And we're going to look at whether or not we're going to use overtime, outsource the work, look at alternative work arrangements, bringing back recent retirees, or even those that the people that we let go, increasing then contingent workers if we need to, meaning contract workers, only needing them for a little bit of time, and then also trying to um, reduce the turnover. Due diligence is, of course, where we've looked at all of the compliance, compensation programs, quality of the talent, and that we've done everything to make sure that whatever we're doing, whether we're reducing the workforce or whether we're adding to the workforce, is all in compliance so that we're going to be okay. And then we have to look at the culture. Regardless of ethnicity, we're talking about the organizational culture. We want to make sure that the employees know how they're supposed to behave, who your role models are, provide those incentives, and also make sure that there's always clear and consistent messages on behavior and how you're supposed to act. When we do have capital effectiveness, we have the return on our investment, meaning that the company is making money. We have value for our human capital as well. And then, of course, again, we have wealth per employee. This is always calculated. The return on investment is equal to C being the gains from productivity divided by operating costs and one-time costs of acquisition or implementation. That, of course, should be a positive number to ensure that we're where we need to be. So this is basically chapter 2. Chapter 2 talks again about the strategies that we use in order to make sure that we're going to stay afloat and the business is going to stay afloat. Don't forget to do your assignments, finish your exams, finish your assignments, your discussions, and if you need anything, don't hesitate to contact me. I'll see you on the flip side.